This is part two of the digital workflow, and we are starting back up after importing into a catalog system such as Lightroom. The first thing that you're going to want to do is organize and sort out the images. You'll be shooting a lot more images than you ever would have if you were working in film, and you want to make sure that you can find these things and use them a year from now. The first thing I do is do keywords, and for those, you select the images that you want, and then you enter the keywords. So, for example, this image here has a set of keywords already in it, since I've already done this, and you would put in as many as are needed. I do have other videos that go over that process. Once you've gone through that, then you're also going to rate the images. And for rating, while I do keywording in this grid view, I zoom in to do my rating system. And I also have other videos that deal with Lightroom's method for that process. You would then once you've done that, look at putting together collections. And collections are basically projects that you're going to work on, and you can drag as many images into a collection as you want to. And it's a great way to, easily find things that you were working on. After this process, you then have to decide if you're going to edit your image in Lightroom. If you're going to edit it in Lightroom, there's another video for that. But if you're going to edit it in Photoshop, one thing that you have to do first is you have to tell Lightroom, okay, how do I want to work on this? And so we go over here to Lightroom Preferences, click on that. And under External Editing, the file format is TIFF. Color space is ProPhoto or Adobe RGB. ProPhoto is bigger. I've had some issues with printing with it. Bit depth, 8-bit should work for 90% of what you're going to do. 16-bit is if you're having banding issues because you have these smooth transitions. So for example, a clear sky that goes from a lighter tone to a darker tone may have those issues. But remember, you double your file size if you go up to 16. Resolution for a quality print would be 300, and I do use LZW compression for my TIFFs. So once you've got that into play, you can then decide whether or not you're going to do the camera raw editing in Lightroom. In which case, to open up the file, once you've gone into the develop mode, done those camera raw changes, you then go up to here where it says photo and edit in, and then you would select Adobe Photoshop, or if you have a different plugin that you're using. Now, I'm going to just switch over really quickly to Photoshop because that image is already open. So the image would already be opened and ready to work on. You'd still have to save it, ready to go. The other method to working on an image from Lightroom would be to just drag it, so press and drag down to Photoshop, and the difference this time is that it's going to open up Camera Raw, and that would give you Photoshop's Camera Raw to work on, and I have a video on that one as well. So I'm just going to hit cancel since I'm not going through that process right now. So the next thing is then to do non-destructive editing in Photoshop. That is going to be, the majority of it will happen through the use of adjustment layers. They are down here in the layers palette, and so for example, if I wanted to turn this into black and white, I use an adjustment layer. It's a layer I can actually change. I can mask it out. I can change the opacity on it. And it's not a permanent thing. I could remove it if I wanted to. So we call that non-destructive. The next kind of changes that you might do, so what we just did is global in this situation because I haven't masked it out of anything. If I want to make very specific things like cloning out areas, you want to do that on an empty file, and our empty layer, and I'm going to drag that below the adjustment layer so that any changes I make would be under that same change. And depending on, so if I'm using the healing brush, sample all layers, or if I'm using the cloning tool, current and below. You want to make sure that way you can pull information from that background area. The other thing that I do is once a file has gotten very complex, I start to put those changes into folders. So let's say not only did I make it into black and white, but I did a radical change, and we're just going to do something awful. I did a radical change to the exposure. So these are color and contrast change. I would select both of those, do the little pop-up, new group from layers, call that tone and color. You could call it whatever you want. You could call it effects. And that way then all of those are in one area. If I had a bunch of different cloning layers, I would do the same thing. So that's a nice way to organize it. After that, once you've made your changes or you're done working and remember to save on a regular basis. So we're going to save as, which gives us the ability to move it to a new location and to rename it. When you are naming, remember it is alphanumeric dash or underscore. That's the only thing. No spaces, no funny characters. And when I've made major changes to an image, it then becomes name 2. And if I've made variations, then it would be name 2, B, C, D. So big changes get a number, and little changes just get a little letter after that number. And so I've made a couple of these before, so I'm going to call this number 5. And I am saving it as a TIFF. I'm going to do that LZW compression and say OK. And there's a nice thing about doing that editing in Photoshop method in Lightroom, because when I go back to Lightroom, you will notice that that image that I did photo edit in, it's already, Lightroom knew, yeah, I'm going to hold on to this. And so it's already in my Lightroom catalog. Alrighty, that's the end.